Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 9, entitled, The Lord Incarnates as Mohini Murti. Text 29. Sukadeva Goswami has described in great detail the story of how the demigods and the asuras made a truce from their enmity and fighting for a purpose that they shared, which was to achieve nectar through the churning of the ocean of milk. Interestingly, they performed the same activity for apparently the same goal, but their motives were altogether different. During this churning of the ocean of milk, both the suras and the asuras were literally doing exactly the same activity. They were churning. They were lifting mountains. The same obstacles came before both of them. And physically they were both dealing with those obstacles in very similar ways. If you didn't know which team was which, you would just see them just doing the same thing. There was no difference. And what they were doing it for was exactly the same. They both wanted that pot of nectar. The same pot with the same nectar. So what was the difference between the two? We find in this verse, Sukadeva Goswami explains, one is an eternal activity for the benefit of all living beings, and one is a temporary activity that's not really for the benefit of anyone. How could this be? They're doing the same thing, exactly, in the same place, in the same way, for the same thing. But yet the results are described practically like black and white. One is sat, one is asat. One is working under illusion, and one is working for the highest truth. And Srila Prabhupada explains here in the purport that within this world, and the translation specifically focuses on this, everyone has to perform various activities for the protection of one's wealth and one's life by one's words, mind, and actions. But our motivation is what determines the actual result. In Kurukshetra, Arjuna was fighting with arrows, and Karna was fighting with arrows. Duryodhana was fighting with a club, and Bhima was fighting with a club. In the same place, very much in the same way. And all of them were very, very highly trained and expert. But the results were opposite. Because one was acting selfishly, and the other was acting in the service of the Lord. So to understand the difference between material and spiritual is on this basis, as revealed in the Shastras, the Holy Scriptures, as revealed by the great Acharyas. Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam. Everything is emanating from the Absolute Truth. And because the Absolute Truth is perfect, everything emanating from the Absolute must also be perfect. Just like all light that is emanating from the sun is light. We do not see darkness emanating from the sun. Because the sun is nothing but light, everything that emanates from the sun has to be light. So similarly, everything that comes from Krishna, who is purely spiritual, is purely spiritual. And this material world is also coming from Krishna. Everything is coming from Krishna. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. All material and spiritual worlds, everything emanates from me, Krishna says. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Everything coming from the sun is light, but if we personally turn our backs to the sun, then we see a shadow. That shadow is indirectly caused by the sun. Although it's the absence of the sun, caused by the sun, because we turn away. In the same way, everything within this world is in fact spiritual. But if we forget its relationship with its source, with God, then it affects us as something material. According to the philosophy of bhakti, the difference of material and spiritual is simply our cognizance. When we see anything's connection to its source or to God, then we actually enter into the spiritual essence of our perception of that thing. But when we forget its relationship with God, then we are bound to the material result of that perception. And we were describing yesterday Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he gave this very simple, comprehensive understanding of everything. Jivara Swarupoi Krishnara Nityadas. That every living entity is constitutionally, by nature, the servants of Krishna. We as spirit souls, we are part of God, and the part naturally serves the whole. Srila Prabhupada gives simple analogies. The hand is part of the body, so the function of the hand is to serve the rest of the body. If the hand wants to enjoy separate from the rest of the body, it will be in a very diseased condition. So when the soul sees herself or himself as the eternal servant of Krishna, and sees everything within this world as the creation of Krishna, Mother Nature, who is the source of everything we perceive with our five senses, she is an expansion of Lakshmi Devi, Bhudevi, the goddess of fortune. The goddess of fortune is forever engaged in the loving service of Narayan, the Supreme Lord. So everything created by the Mother Earth is a service for the pleasure of the Lord. And a devotee understands not just an idea, but a fact, that every tree, every blade of grass, every molecule of air, everything is manifesting from the goddess of fortune, Bhudevi, for the pleasure of the Lord. And we, aham bija pratapita, we are all the sons and daughters of Krishna, who is the father and mother of every living being. And this body and our particular life form that we have is coming from Mother Earth. Yes, we do have a mother and father, who in this case are two human beings. But actually, their bodies, all the energy and all the materials that were utilized for the purpose of giving birth to us are all given by Mother Nature. The father's semen, the mother's body, her womb, all the food that she eats to nourish us. It's all products, gifts of Mother Nature. So factually, every living being, both from a material and spiritual perspective, we are all intimately relatives of one family. It's a big family. Every germ, every insect, every fish, all the plants and the trees, all the animals and the birds, and all different kinds of human beings. It's all one family. Spiritually, we have the same father and mother, Radha, Gopinath. We are all eternally their parts and parcels, emanating like the sun rays from the sun. And materially, we have the same mother and father. Essentially, Mother Earth is our mother. And the Lord is her consort. So spiritual vision actually unifies. Some believe that in order for there to be actual unity, to create oneness, then the absolute truth must be completely formless, without characteristics, just one unlimited oneness that exists forever. That is the Brahman perception of God. But the Para-Brahman conception of God is to understand the unlimited variegatedness that exists. But how all that incredible variegatedness is united, is harmonized, and is ultimately one in essence, because it's all coming from God, and it's all ultimately meant for the pleasure of God. This is achintya Veda Tattva. That there is inconceivable, simultaneous variegatedness in everything, everywhere, forever, both on the material and spiritual platform. The difference is on the material platform, we are all forgetful of our purpose, our essence, our origin. But on the spiritual platform, we are conscious of that. Srila Prabhupada named our movement Krishna Consciousness. Krishna explains in Gita that he's everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and everything in me, that person is never lost, nor is he or she ever lost to me. So Krishna is everywhere. To be conscious of that is spiritual vision. To not be conscious of that is material vision. It's like a dream. So yes, we find that the asuras and the devatas, the same activity for apparently the exact same result, but ultimately they get a completely different result. And it is very graphically revealed in this story. Even though the asuras apparently won, they lost. And although the devatas apparently lost, they won. That makes sense when we understand that ultimately the result of our activities is dependent on our consciousness. The asuras, they made every possible arrangement from the very beginning of the churning of the ocean of milk. The asuras knew that they would get it, all of it, because they knew they were more powerful. For them, the demigods, this was a really sentimental type of thing. We're going to churn the ocean. The asuras were far more powerful in every way materially. They had just defeated the demigods, beaten them down, taken everything away. The demigods had no power to do anything to protect themselves or their property. So now they're coming to us to say, let's churn and get nectar. And we're in such a higher upper position that when we get the nectar, we'll just take it all, like we've taken everything else from them. And we get all the benefits, more benefit than anybody could possibly imagine, and the demigods will get nothing. Materially, that was the only way it could possibly work out. Now, why would the demigods want to churn the ocean of milk if they knew that the demons would get everything? From a material perspective, the demons had to get everything. But the demigods did it on the basis of their faith in Vishnu. That's all. That was their only hope, was their faith. Because Vishnu told him, you do it. And I'll be there for you. It was almost like blind following. You know, on a far more spiritual platform, on a pure, totally ecstatic platform of love of God, Aghasura had his mouth open, and the Gopas saw it. And someone said, oh, one of the Gopas said, this is a big mountain cave, look. Its teeth are like big icicles. Its tongue is like a big red road. And then another Gopa said, no, that's a giant snake. Just step back a little, can't you see? And started running away. And some other Gopa said, no, don't run away. Yes, it is a giant snake. But let's go in. Krishna will protect us. So here is this giant serpent who's a massive asura demon whose only intent of coming to Vrindavan was to swallow and kill all the residents of Vrindavan. Yes? That was his motive. Can you imagine if you were just walking down Marine Drive and you saw this gigantic serpent, miles wide with its mouth open? Such a monster. Anybody would be afraid. But the Gopas were not afraid. They were laughing, clapping their hands, dancing as they ran into the mouth of Aghasura. And as they were running in, they were looking at Krishna smiling because they knew Krishna would save them. So materially it didn't make sense. They should have ran the other direction. But they had faith. On a lesser level, the demigods, here they are, churning this ocean, working so hard, risking their lives, struggling and straining to get nectar, when for all practical purposes, the demons were so much stronger. They had such an upper hand that they were going to definitely take it all. The only thing the demigods had was their faith. That Krishna said we should do it, and he's our well-wisher, so we should do it. It's this faith beyond material conceptions that is foundational to all great spiritual things that have ever been done in this world. Srila Prabhupada was given the order to go to the West to give this message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now what chances? On a cargo ship, after several heart attacks, arriving in New York City, knowing no one, no money, 70 years old, and even after struggling and trying in New York City, apparently, after 8 months, 6 months, everything was like a failure. His typewriter was stolen, his books were stolen, his life was threatened. Why did he keep trying? The Jaladuta prayers explain it's simply based on faith. His guru told him to do it. Guru tells him to do it, that means God is telling him to do it through the guru. Saksad dharit vena samasta sastraya. The Prabhupada struggled with faith, and we see because that faith in Krishna, in God, how the impossible became possible. We study in any great spiritual path. The early Christians, they were being persecuted. Their Savior, Jesus, was just crucified. And he told them, go out and preach. And there was basically a government ordinance that if anybody was preaching this, they would also be killed, tortured and killed. And factually, almost every one of his original disciples was either crucified or killed in some way. Why did they do it? Because they had faith in something that was not seen by the eyes. They knew if I do it, I'll go back to God. So they gladly were willing to die with faith that they were willing to go back to Godhead. Now there's faith in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Some people have faith in the wrong things. Everybody on the material platform has faith in the wrong things, sometimes even the name of God. But that's really all the demigods had. It's their faith. Mahabharata is so much about faith. Ramayana is so much. Arjuna, Yudhisthira, there were certain situations within that battle where it was hopeless. But they had faith in Krishna's direction, and they overcame all obstacles. So we find here, so graphically, how things work sometimes, even on the path of service to the Lord. The demigods are working and working and working along with the demons to get the nectar. The demons are seeing it from a material perspective. We're going to get it all because we're stronger. And the demigods, because Krishna told us to do it, we're going to get it. Other than that, why we shouldn't be doing this. And after everything happens, and finally the nectar comes, what happens? The demons get it all. They, exactly as they planned it, is what happened. And the demigods were completely bereft with nothing. All this trouble to try to get our abodes back, now we're going to never get it back. All they could do is turn to Krishna. But they had faith. And even though the demons got everything they wanted, by their own egos, they were fighting over it. It's the materialistic way of life. We get something, we fight over it. Yes. Just like every nation. Whether it is America or India or anywhere. America was a British colony. And somehow or other they had to fight an entire bloody war to get independence. Now this is our country. But there's the Democrats and the Republicans, and they're constantly fighting, always fighting, over who's going to be in charge, over who has the power, essentially over who this country belongs to. Yes. How many parties are there in India? And as soon as a party gets in power, then even that party starts splitting up and fighting. Yes? So that's material life. We fight for something to be ours, but then when it's ours, we fight over which is mine. And when something is mine, we fight over which is really mine. The seed of all of this enmity is just selfishness. And that selfishness is born of forgetting who everything really belongs to. Therefore, this simple peace formula that Srila Prabhupada has given us, Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suradam Sarvabhutanam Gyatva Mam Shanti Mrichchati. And Krishna is the proprietor of everything. And Krishna is the enjoyer of everything. And Krishna is really our best friend. He loves us forever. We should trust him. If we just understand these principles, there can be peace within our own heart, and there can be peace among all living entities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was roaming through the Jarikhanda forest. And although, from a perspective of a tourist, the forest is a very peaceful place. Yes? It's like you're living in a city and there's so much competition and so much people just fighting and trying to get more for themselves. Traffic and pollution, and you go to the forest and it's a very peaceful place. But
Cannot hear.
Hare Krishna. But really in the forest, you know, the spiders are eating the flies, and the tigers are eating the deers, and jiva sa jivanam. It's just all about a stronger being eating a weaker being. Yes. And if there happens to be snakes, or tigers, or leopards, or panthers, or elephants, or rhinoceroses, then even it might not be so peaceful for you, because they're stronger. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling through a tiger-infested forest, Jarikhanda. People didn't go there. So many tigers, and leopards, and mad wild elephants. These mad wild elephants were not in a good mood. If they saw a human being, they would just crush you into dust. And the deers, they're always running away from tigers. And the tigers are always hunting deers. Because really, basically, for the lower species, most of their life, they're just looking for food. Yes, they're just smelling around and looking around for food. It's really an important part of survival is to eat. They don't have to worry about paying rent. They don't have to worry about saving money for their children's education. Basically, it's just about food. And then, the sexual impulse, sometimes they have to deal with that one. So it's very basic physical needs that they're totally absorbed in. Day and night. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the forest, because he's Krishna, and he was in the center, and he was uniting all of these animals in a spirit of devotion through kirtan, chanting God's names. And we find the deer and the elephant, who are literally the worst possible enemies. The tiger looks at a deer only to eat her, to jump on her with their sharp teeth, to pierce their throats, eat their flesh, and just leave their bones. That's all. When a tiger sees a deer, that's the only thought. He doesn't think, oh, such nice, peaceful eyes. How they jump so gracefully. That's the way we see a deer. The tiger, it's just about drinking their blood and eating their flesh. And the deer, when they see a tiger, it's death personified. But when Lord Chaitanya was there, and they both recognized their relationship with each other based on their love for the Lord. The tiger and the deers began to embrace in ecstatic love. Nowhere has this ever been seen in this material world. And Lord Chaitanya was thinking of Vrindavan, because that's the way it is in Vrindavan. Because Krishna is the center, everyone realizes their eternal connection to each other on every level. And there's harmony, there's peace. And more than that, there's love, there's actual love. So the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told the story of Magrari, the hunter. He was very deeply habituated to finding pleasure in torturing and killing animals. It was in his genes. He was born in a family that did that. Some people are addicted to smoking cigarettes, some are addicted to alcohol, some are addicted to other things. He was addicted to the sense gratification of watching other creatures die under his prowess. It was an addiction. And he justified it all as being his career. Yes, we can justify anything. People in the business world, sometimes they lie, they cheat, they ruin people's lives, and they say, well, that's business. That's my job. What can I do? That's the consciousness of Magrari, that's all. Just justify anything to hurt others on the basis of, it's my job, what can I do? It's my career. It may be your career, but because it's your career, it doesn't in any way, shape, or form protect you from the karmic results if you hurt others. Career or no career, the laws of karma stand. And Narada Muni was so merciful, he showed that to Magrari. He actually showed the vision of the future, where Magrari saw every one of these animals he ever hurt all coming back to him in other forms to give him the same torture